Want to start actually, it's cool as you do these events over the years, people come, especially those serial entrepreneurs, and you get to see their career evolve and grow. Many of you probably recognize Nick Davis, the CEO of Grid Market. Nick has been going to EarthX for, almost a decade, I think. Yeah. His other company, Grid Market, is partnered with half a dozen island nations in developing optimized national energy grids, but works with data centers and commercial real estate portfolios across the globe. This is the mascot of his new venture, SMR Defense, which we'll get into shortly. John Lee is the CEO of Sapphire. John actually has a very unique background here at the Nature Summit and here at EarthX. He served as the contracts directorate at the U.S. Department of Defense, where he oversaw contracts $3 billion and up. After that, he worked at Palantir, overseeing government contracts. And since he left Palantir, has been in the world of venture and startups. And his newest creation is Sapphire. John, Nick, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Nick, let's start with you. So you first brought Morty to the first Nature Summit in Panama, and we were talking really about its application there. Can you talk about, as you see it, what is that, and how is it relevant to what we're talking about here at the Nature Summit?
So this is a robotic quadruped. There are a bunch of manufacturers that basically build the shells. What we have to do is make them smart. So we have to retrofit them with American components in certain cases if it's a defense application. We put things like robotic arms on it so it can perform certain tasks. But what SMR Defense has really developed is a fleet approach and a hardware as a service approach to robotic applications, specifically for energy and critical infrastructure. So Matt mentioned my legacy company, Grid Market. We have over 100 distributed energy projects in the field, things like solar and battery storage, cogeneration, fuel cells. Right now, we're developing on-site energy for around 50 plus data centers, which makes it's a transition from having gone very clean and green to now being kind of in a more adversarial role, just trying to make these data center generation projects as clean as possible with things like geothermal. We announced a big partnership where we are separating carbon from natural gas solutions and storing it with an air derivative company called Arbor, and that was a big partnership we announced. The reality, though, is if we look at an economy where critical infrastructure like data centers, where there's more AI, where you have SMRs everywhere, so small modular reactors and nuclear, the only way that reality is achievable, and it looks like it's happening whether we like it or not, well, for better or worse, the only way is if we have automated ways to take care of the more critical and painful jobs. Things like reacting to arc flash work at electrical facilities that are dangerous for humans. Eventually, things like handling fissile material and nuclear waste for reactor companies. So humans shouldn't be exposed to that risk. There are jobs that are sad to be replaced, and then there are jobs that are not. Very dangerous jobs are not sad when they're replaced. Humans shouldn't die managing electrical systems when you have things that won't being able to perform these tasks. So SMR Defense is really around kind of a few critical items it's engaged. One, securing and maintaining sites. Then doing a lot of observation work, response to things like perimeter breaches. If a deer jumps a fence, this can speak in pretty much any language and make any type of animal call to ward it off. But it really starts in the beginning when you start propping up a plant or an energy project or a piece of infrastructure. You have expensive equipment on site. People steal it. You typically have security guards that have to live on that site in more remote environments while you're doing projects. These things start to patrol around. They can observe whether people are wearing their hard hats and are OSHA compliant, so you get insurance discounts. And then you carry it through to the maintenance elements where you can have them clean off solar panels, you can have them open electrical cabinets and perform that next level of work. So these coordinate with drones in boxes that self-launch and self-charge with some of our microgrid systems as well. And it all speaks as one fleet. There are some humanoids as kind of gimmicks, but humans are not efficient workers, so we try to minimize the amount that we have of those, the humanoid knockoffs.
And Nick, talk about the thought leadership and academic kind of institutions that like are behind this new venture of yours.
Yeah, so we have Duke University basically domesticating our supply chain in a partnership, as well as NIU. And what we're really trying to do is make sure that we meet all of the local FIOC requirements and everything necessary to, be able to say that everything's properly assembled and sourced in the U.S.
John, love if you jump in here. Obviously, unique background working in government, working in government contracts. Curious, can you kind of talk about what your evolution was like going from that world to throwing yourself into the world of startups, of identifying a need and leaning in?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a contracting officer for the U.S. Navy Civil Service, I was responsible for different procurements. First was doing procurements for upgrading some of our defense systems, and then was doing the energy upgrade systems on Navy ships to make it advanced hybrid drive, so we can actually use less fuel on our DDG Navy ships when it's not in battle. I've also done procurements for counter IED jamming systems, a box that goes into cars as they're driving over IEDs, enemies can't blow it up. And then I was responsible for doing all of the submarine data center upgrades. So it's basically a box that's a data center. It drops into a submarine, and you swap them out every a dozen of years per submarine, from Seawolf class to Virginia Tech class subs. Also trying to figure out ways to
Submarine data center.
literally data center in the submarine.
Did
It's
anyone else know that was a thing?
It was a $2.4 billion contract. We got to upgrade them somehow.
Okay.
And then we were actually doing some unique fun things, such as using the part of the hull of the submarine to actually be the rack servers on the walls, because it had a lot of cooling
Yeah.
there. So taking that knowledge and then coming out and working at Palantir, where I was head of contracts for all of U.S. government, I took the knowledge of how money moves from requirements to Congress to leadership within the departments, such as Department of Defense, Department of War, and then down to actual program managers, to contractors, and then having them build, and also holding them accountable for building, delivering, and then delivering to the end users. And so taking that knowledge, I went on the other side and was able to deploy Palantir software to help to catch a lot of bad guys doing bad things, and also just bringing together data that just has not been put together to be able to solve new problems. So understanding the money flow, I think the reason why I'm so excited about being at EarthX is because private-public partnership, PPP as I call it, is so hard. You've got government organizations where I label government as where no one man can do anything, but any one man can stop everything. It's just a horrible big acquisition, a blocker of anything. And then you've got capital movers who doesn't understand companies who wants to do good. Capital movers are many times driven by profits more than good. And so you gotta find the right capital movers, and then the right government representatives, and then the folks who are actually building technologies and working on problems, all to come to one place to have discussions. And it's rooms like this where we have those discussions, where it's been enabled by EarthX for us to do that here. So just being able to translate all of that into from government to being a GP at venture capital to start my own company, I think understanding that what we are working on as a builder is that all we're trying to do is we're just trying to solve a problem, and then making sure that along the way everybody wins. The capital movers win, the end users get what they get. The government is also using money for good and not just wasting taxpayer dollars.
Which of course is what makes it inherently scalable. So tell us about Sapphire.
Yep. So at Sapphire, we are building AI-enabled hardware and software for furthering energy resilience. The company started as a spin-out from Oak Ridge National Lab out of Department of Energy, where at DOE, this is the lab that invented the first nuclear materials, invented the first nuclear reactor, and our chief science officer has invented a nanoparticle, a silicon nanoparticle that prevents batteries from blowing up or catching on fire when it gets impacted. So this could be inside the systems that the soldiers are holding, or eventually in electric vehicles to prevent fires from when they crash. And so from that technology, we have now advanced to other technologies where we just had a breakthrough in a silicon anode chemistry that brings 15% energy density at Arctic environments at negative 60 degrees Celsius, which was a requirement that it was directly needed from the Department of War today. Also applicable on the commercial use cases. We've also launched our AI division last year, where we're working on energy intelligence layer. So this is being able to bring together all of the telemetry information from across all the systems using batteries, but also non-battery systems under one layer, so we can give that information to the commanders who are making decisions, and also now applying that into data centers to be able to optimize on usage of CPUs and GPUs against weather and external factors is the areas that we're tackling today.
Well, I'd imagine the molecule helping prevent batteries from exploding or catching fire, quite necessary for those batteries that are being hit by natural disasters and storms.
Yes, absolutely. And so we also wanted to go a step farther. So by using these particles, we're able to move the energy storage system safely. So we've made a variation that could be inside an ISU military container that can be slinged on a helicopter. So as long as if you're doing island hopping, or if there's a natural disaster in one island, you can actually move energy from one island to another and bring it to one location. So now have a movable mobile energy system as a technology that we worked on. We also are working on a project with Air Force Research Lab and Space Force. They have a project where they are actually transporting cargo from one continent to another within 2 hours within SpaceX Starship, and they wanted to transport battery, but hence we can't even take big batteries on our airplanes, so how can they take batteries on spaceships? So they asked us to work on a way that our nanoparticles can actually prevent the batteries from blowing up when transit, launching, and re-entering inside the spaceship cargo.
Nick, bring this back to Panama, where this all began. I think one of the case studies that you highlighted back in May of last year was the Darien Gap. Can you kind of talk about the challenge that poses and how SMR defense might be a solution?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about drone and robotic fleets is anyone who looks at them comes up with an application for what they do in their life, whether it's securing their own home, carrying their groceries, or in nature's case here, there are areas that are difficult to patrol and difficult to conserve. There are poacher issues in certain places. So, I've had so many great conversations here already with people bringing up those kinds of things. And one of the early applications that we had kind of put together and thought of as well is the Darien Gap, of course, is like the only area in the Americas that really creates a literal gap between the continents. Otherwise, you'd be able to drive all the way from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. And this is the one strip of land that prevents that from happening. But it's also very vulnerable. There's a lot of biodiversity. But over the last number of years, there have been millions of migrants cycling through, and there's been a ton of environmental devastation. So these things really create a multi-use platform where you can do a level of monitoring for conservation. You can have them at the same time collect data points on long-term forest monitoring and management, wildlife sightings. You can also track, whether there are cartels moving through these areas. You can track whether there are people migrating through. You can get counts. You can figure out how to respond, how to provide really humane services and help people. That's very difficult for teams of people to patrol and for teams of people to do. People can't collect this number of data points. They can't patrol as much. So that was one of the applications we were looking at, is having these fleets really do multi-use performance in places like the Darien Gap. And one thing I'd like to note, you heard it from John on the Navy stuff, and I'll just say it. we wouldn't have a carbon problem from an energy generation perspective here, or frankly, even a data center problem, if we just gave everything over to the Navy like 50 years ago. They had small modular reactors starting when Admiral Rickover created the nuclear Navy. They literally pull these things up to naval ports, and it powers the entire base. So that's carbon-free electrons that we don't really utilize here because of nuclear non-proliferation agreements. We don't commercialize it. Then you have these like amazing subsea data center concepts like in the submarine, and only now people are talking about submersive data centers for free cooling. So the Navy's always ahead of the curve. It's really interesting. But here's my weird prediction as you follow what's going on with conflict throughout the world. I think all of this kind of breakup in what's normal and the standard kind of diplomatic contracts, you're going to see people use that as an excuse to kill the nuclear non-proliferation treaties. Everyone's going to start reprocessing their nuclear waste, and you're going to see, as a byproduct of a lot of this bad stuff, you're going to see basically like high-grade uranium that's going to be reprocessed in like breeder reactors, and you're going to see very efficient nuclear, and that'll be a byproduct of some of the bad that's happening.
Thank you for that prediction, Nick. All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you both for joining us for In Defense of Nature.
Thank you.
Sounds good.